As I've been saying for a little while now, I believe that Kody and Robyn are consistently trying to rehabilitate their image. I think that both of them are trying desperately to convince the audience that even though we've watched them over the course of 18 seasons, now going into 19 seasons, that we clearly don't know what we've seen and we are not intelligent enough to process the information that we have. Now, granted, I am intelligent enough to know that some of what Kody is saying is true. When he says,
Jeff, I think you're a victim of 20 hours of our life.
I don't disagree with that. I think that we only get to see a small segment or a section of your life. I think that we don't get to see the full depth and breadth of your character, everything that you go through, what your inner thoughts are, what your thought process is. However, the things that we do see are the things that we don't like about you. Now, the question that I would ask, the broader question I would ask, even to Kody, because I'll target Kody because I think the two of them go together in a lot of ways. But the broader question I would ask to him or anybody who would use the excuse that you only see us for 20 hours, do I have to see you do bad things all day to recognize when you do the wrong thing? Do I have to watch you break into a store, shoplift, every day that you walking around, every store you go into, you have to shoplift in order for me to call you a thief? Or I just watch you shoplift one time, take something that doesn't belong to you one time, and then from that one instance be able to say that person steals? And that's the situation that we find ourselves in. And this is kind of that steel man where he's arguing that because we don't see him 24 hours a day and because we're not intimately familiar with every thought process that goes through his mind, that somehow we can't make an assessment on his character. Like, same, Robyn is doing the same thing. This is part of the reason why early on she was one way, and then we get to see a different Robyn as the season goes on. There's a mismatching her character. When you watch her, she's not consistent. And some people could say, well, James, that's an arc. That's a story arc. She starts out one place and then she develops and grows and then she becomes a different person throughout the years. That's natural. That is natural. But what's not natural is I don't think that she's changed fundamentally. I just think that she's changed behaviors. For instance, when we watch her in the first few seasons, she's an expert in all things. She's very outspoken. She's very in the forefront of the show. She would give questions. They would ask questions, and she would give answers to things she couldn't possibly know. They would ask the OG3 about what was it like when you originally got with Cody, when you first met him. What was it like before you started having kids? What was it like, living as a polygamous family for all those years? Because remember, they had been polygamous for 15, 20 years prior to her coming into the family. Then all of a sudden, she's sitting on the couch and she's the expert of polygamy. She's telling us this is what monogamists do. This is what polygamists do. This is what monogamists think. This is what polygamists think. Everybody is mistaken. So she can tell me, she knows enough where she can tell me what I think. But then what was it like in your family at the time when you came into the family? I had no idea there was difficulties. I had no idea there were problems. I was totally confused. I must have been totally fooled by these people whom I'm supposed to be around and supposed to know. Like, you can make the argument that I don't know you because I only get to see you 20 hours out of a season, out of a year, but you guys are supposed to be living with each other. But yet and still, she's sitting there saying that she has no idea what's going on, but she's an expert enough on Cody. She's the expert enough that wants to be included in all the meetings. So what we're supposed to believe is that somehow she's a wise ignoramus. She's a wise fool. She's a sophomore. That makes no sense. There's also a part where Cody, if he ever sees this video, may argue, but that's what I'm saying. You guys don't really understand us. And if you're going to target me, then target me. But she never did any of that. Yes, she did. Because she made similar arguments during the episodes of the Talk Back or the Look Back. I believe it was the Look Back. that TLC ran out right after season 18. Let's take a look at that, what she had to say and how she presented herself to the audience, and why we shouldn't judge her negatively for her character.
They're trying to make it look like you did it.
Well, they don't know who I am then.
Nobody knows who you are.
Everybody has you mistaken because nobody knows who you are. So I guess that would mean that the only person who understands Robyn or knows Robyn is actually Cody, because the two of them are soulmates and they're the only people who can understand each other. Here's the thing. I don't have to know you intently to dislike you or dislike the things that you do. I don't have to be personal friends with you and know everything about you. And there are characters that you'll see on the show that you may like, you may be drawn to them, you may dislike them on sight. That happens with people. There are people who walk around and you might watch my video. There are people who watch my video and be like, wow, that guy is great. There are people who watch my video and be like, for 2 seconds, be like, oh, this guy is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and then turn the video off. It happens. Get over it. And get over yourself. Don't take yourself so serious. We don't have to like you. And in fact, that's how the world works. Maybe maybe your parents never told you there are going to be people who like you and people who don't. You just be yourself. And that's part of the issue that I have, is because for a lot of seasons, I don't think we actually had a scenario where we actually got to see Robyn for who she is. We got to see Robyn try to pretend to be somebody who she thinks we would like. And that's how it comes off to me. There's also the point where Cody will say, you guys only see us for 20 hours. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens that you're not familiar with. The funny thing is, I agree with you, Cody. And I'm trying to put together some of the things that make sense to me. Some of the conversations that you may have had that make sense to me when I look at a couple of the episodes and I become more and more familiar with your commentary. Do you guys remember in season 18 where Cody had this to say?
How do you feel you started out with Robyn then? Was it different?
Yeah, it was.
Were you different?
Well, I fell in love with Robyn. I never fell in love with anybody else. I was just choosing to be in that covenant of love with them.
He was choosing to be in that covenant of love with them. Let's key on that word, covenant of love. Now, he said, I was never in love with those women. Robyn is the only one I was in love with. Now, I don't see you guys all the time. I'm not around you guys all the time. I'm not familiar with you. You guys, I only see you 20 hours a year or for the season, and 1 episode a week, 1 hour a week. So I don't really know you. But my question is this. The way you phrased it, the covenant that you had, you made a covenant with Robyn too. You made a covenant with Robyn that if you didn't love her, that you wouldn't hold her, you wouldn't keep her, that you would let her go. You would let her know that you didn't have those feelings. Now, we've all made the assessment that you were actually talking about Mary. The funny thing is that because I don't know you, is that something that you also said about the other wives? Is that a position that you had? Because, you made a covenant with Robyn as well, that you wouldn't, hold her, keep her, or maintain the marriage or relationship if you didn't love her. I wonder where that conversation started. I wonder if this is something that you shared with Robyn, which means that Robyn was walking around for the entirety of your marriage with the knowledge that you genuinely didn't care about the other women you were supposed to be married to. That gives a different perspective of Robyn's character, especially when she sits on the side of Cody Pass and she cries and talks about she always dreamed that when she came into the family, she was going to be a wife and she was going to have sister wives and she was going to sit on the side of the mountain and look at her kids and her grandkids playing out in the fields while she's sitting there with the sister wives on her porch enjoying her things, while these women are, they get to maybe they get to maintain like trailers or RVs out in your yard. But that's what her dream was. Now imagine a world where she knew that the husband that she was in love with, the man she was in love with, only had eyes for her and only wanted to spend time with her. You think that Cody didn't go home and express to her that he didn't want to go over and sleep with these other women? Now, she may say, well, I wanted him to do those things. Did you want him to do those things because you wanted to push your lover, your husband out the door? Did you want him to do those things because you knew that was the only way to maintain the lifestyle that you've grown accustomed to? Because that's part of it as well. And that's one of the things that we can't ignore, because even when you have marriages and things that break down and relationships that break down, if you tie yourself to another person financially and that person decides to leave, then you very well may look at that situation and say to yourself, even though I don't want to be with them, I don't want them to go, because if they go, they're taking half the rent with them. They're taking half the mortgage payment with them. I may have to turn my car in. I can't wear nice clothes anymore. I can't go on these big vacations that I enjoy so much. I'll have to refocus my finances. I may have to make child support payments that I'm currently not making, because now we're doing it together. We're working out together. But if we separate, these are financial burdens that I'm going to suffer. And because of that, I don't want this marriage to end. Again, I'm not with you guys for 365 days, so I'm just asking the question. The next thing I'm curious about, you guys say that we only make these wrong-headed, poor analogies and poor assessments of your lives because we only have limited information, and because of editing, because of misconception as far as the story is being told, we have a bad idea of who you are as people. People are telling your story and you guys don't have the opportunity to tell your stories for yourselves. The funny thing is that you did have the opportunity to tell the story for yourselves. You wrote the Becoming Sister Wives book. Now, this is a book that I've been going through on my Sunday night lives. And Jenny from Senior Perspective has been dropping in, and we've been talking about the book. And when I get to your section, it's my understanding that these sections are written in your words. This is what you had to say to the fan base. The funny thing is, when we look at the book and we talk about the book, there are all kinds of things in here that give me pause. There are all kinds of things in here that lead me to believe that you're misleading the audience. For instance, when you had a conversation with Tim on page 255, second paragraph, you had a conversation with Tim where you said, and I quote, "I've had to be very open with Tim, our producer, and tell him that in certain areas he has to tread lightly so as not to give America's women another reason to hate me. If the audience dislikes me, then we failed in our mission to convey the joys and the stability of our lifestyle. We want to dwell on the positives, not only on dramatic things that sully the picture, if only temporarily. Any woman living in a plural life will tell you the struggles that we have shared about a new wife coming into a family are very normal, and over time, things get better." Over time, you lost 3 of the 4 wives that Cody had. 3 of the 4 moms that were in the family are now gone over time. You also tell us in the book, in your words, that you asked the producers to lie to the audience so that you can have the best perception. And and the best part is that you frame it as though if the audience doesn't like you, then somehow they dislike polygamy. The ironic part is that if they dislike you, but they like Janelle, Christine, and Mary, and they think that those relationships work, then the show itself would be a success. You're just the one that they don't like. But that's not good enough for you because you wanted to stop it. You wanted to lie to us. And because there is a willingness for you to deceive us, we have to question everything you say. Especially when you sit there and say, yeah, guys, you don't see us all the time, so you don't know everything about us. Oh, those things that you saw, you have to take my word that I'm actually a good person and a good mom, wife, sister, wife, whatever the case may be, friend. I'm a person of character, and you have to take my word on these things, even though I'm actively trying to deceive you. There's also a point where you said that you didn't want to shoot the show. This is what you said during your stint as the new wife coming in Celebrity. In Celebrity, you said you didn't want to be famous. You didn't want to shoot the show. In fact, it was so stressful to you that you actually had to make a decision whether you wanted to be with Cody or not, because the show may cause division. The show popped up after you and Cody got together. You didn't believe it was going to be real. You didn't think it was a real thing. Acting as though the show came after you and Cody first started talking. However, in your first chapter on Matrimony, when you started talking about dating Cody, you wrote down that your cousin Reba was visited by Cody the day after you met Cody, and you actually sat there and had the conversation with him, and he talked to you all night. He tried to swing through and check you out again, but you had already went back, 300 miles away, 5 hours away, back to Salt Lake. And so Cody went over to your cousin's house and started asking questions about you. Hey, what's this Robyn about? Where's she at? What's she doing? Can I talk to her? Showing interest in you. And according to you, and this is your words, this isn't the studio, this isn't Tim, this isn't me putting this all together and putting these words in your mouth. This is what you wrote in your best-selling book. This is on page 73. It says, Robyn, Reba said, this is a good family. They're very interested in you. There are a lot of positive things happening here. You need to come and meet all of them. There are a lot of positive things happening here. You mean positive things like Christine being involved with Principal Voices, an organization trying to bring awareness to polygamy, an organization that has ties and has provided media training to its members, including Christine, so that they can appear on television. An organization that has had ties with Tim from TLC, who is interested in doing a reality show on polygamy based off the popularity of the Big Love show that was on HBO. Oh yeah, that's right, because the Google machine does exist. So we can go back and check the dates on all these things. Big Love came out first, even though you guys claim that Big Love was based on your situation. Big Love had aired first and was out first. Your show, most likely, and this is my speculation, your show is TLC's reality show answer to this very successful and popular scripted show. So Big Love came out as, hey, this is a fantasy machination of what it's like to be in a polygamous family. And then TLC said, hey, let's get a real polygamous family, showcase them on our television programs, and see how that goes. And you knew about it before you went down and met with Cody. That's what I'm getting from what you're writing. Now you may say you misunderstood it, James. You don't get what I'm saying, but that's what it says. And that's what makes sense to me. There's also the point where we get into what I think is a bigger lie. And this is where I say that you lose credibility in your denial. So if you ever see this and you want to deny what I'm saying, or you want to protest against what I'm saying, you're already at a disadvantage because of this one statement. In your book, in your words, on page 253, second paragraph of your book, under celebrity, you talk about, like my mother, my father was opposed to my participation in Sister Wives. Although he is retired, he worked a city job his entire life and had to hide his marriages to my mother. When I decided to be part of the show, I think he worried about what would happen to me as well. But after he saw how people reacted to us after the show aired, approaching us on the street, wanting to talk to us, and writing encouraging letters, he began to relax and opened up to the show. In fact, and here's where you messed up. In fact, he agreed to be filmed dancing with me at my wedding. This was a miracle for me. My father, who had never felt comfortable acknowledging me in public before, was willing to go on national television and announce that he is my dad. Technically, he's your stepdad, but family relations aside, later my father agreed to be in an episode about our hunt for houses in Las Vegas. He was there while Mary, Cody, and I were looking for places for us to live. Now I'm going to stop right there because that's also interesting. This I believe he may have decided that he was going to participate or be filmed on the show. That would make sense. If you would have said that, oh, after the first season, my dad decided that, he was going to allow himself to be filmed and be supportive because he saw how popular and positively the show was received by Americans who watched it, American audiences who watched it, that would make sense. The big problem I have with what you said, though, is that you said in your words, in your book, and I'm sure this isn't a typo or a mistake, you said that your dad, after seeing how positively you were received by the audiences and the fans of the show, that he decided that he was going to be in your wedding and dance with you at your wedding. This is what you said. The problem is, your wedding was May 22nd, 2010. That's when your wedding was. The show didn't air until later that year in September 26th of 2010. Now, unless Daddy Chio is good friends with YouTube Is My Time Machine, and he jumped into the hot tub time machine and went back in time so that he could dance with you at your wedding to give you these positive vibes, what you wrote in your book about this scenario is a lie. It's not a misunderstanding. It's not poor editing. It's a lie. Unless, of course, you're going to say that somebody else wrote the book. Somebody else is at fault. Somebody else created this scenario. In which case I would say you should have went back and corrected this whole scenario, and you wouldn't be getting roasted right now. I wouldn't be able to use this right now as part of my analysis. The next thing I wanted to talk about was your interactions with Oprah. All of you talked about going to see Oprah and how important it was and how wonderful she was and how she was this superstar who you idolize. And there's a lot of people who I speak to, especially ladies, who say that they, really admire Oprah and how she, is the boss of all bosses, especially if you understand where she came from and how she came up in the industry. Then, yeah, Oprah is the boss. She's the Don. Okay. And I'm not taking anything from Oprah like you did. Okay. Because You talked about how you looked up to Oprah and you always wanted to be on the show, and you wrote down on the your little wish dreamcaster that you wanted to meet Oprah. You wanted to write a book. Well, you wrote a book, and you wrote about Oprah in that book. I'm exposing some of the dishonesty that you have in your tell-all biography book, and I'm also exposing the thing that you said about Oprah. What you said was on page 258. You said, when you watch Oprah on TV, it is a magical experience. The environment is warm and friendly. It's a place for dreams and aspirations. But sitting there in the cold soundstage, I realized that Oprah is just a television show. Like all other television programs, it creates fantasies for the at-home viewers. It's part make-believe. It's part make-believe. It invites them into a world that doesn't entirely exist. I realized that the magic I had watched on TV wasn't real. The ironic part is that you specifically said that about Oprah. You were on sound stages when you were doing the couch interviews. You were on sound stages when you were doing Good Morning America, when you did the Joy Behar show, when you were doing every other show that you went to, that the publicist and the production team sent you to these interviews to put the show, to bolster the show. These were all sound stages. Now you're telling me that you thought you were going to be sitting in Oprah's living room because that's how you felt, and you didn't have anything to say about these other folks. But Oprah, you wanted to go after her. But that's okay. Let's take you with what you said. You went after Oprah because you said that the things that you see on TV may not be real, and they're designed to titillate the audiences with these false fantasies to make them feel like certain things that they see on TV are real. I turn that back to you. Is this how polygamy worked? Is this how the polygamy propaganda program worked? Is this what TLC was doing to its viewership, the audience members? Because as you said to Tim, you don't want negative stories about you. You want to be able to shape the narrative about what is actually happening in your family. Because if people get the idea that you're somehow the bad guy, or you're doing the things that we're thinking you're doing in the family, and there are struggles in the family, and the family is not getting along, everything isn't, beer and Skittles, that somehow we may see polygamy for what it is, and that's a struggle within a relationship. Because, people, it's very difficult when a wife comes into the family initially, but then the other wives, they kind of get over it as time goes past and everything is great. That's a fantasy. Saying that, women being married to a man and him being able to go out and date other women and everything is fine and they just accept it. That's a fantasy. And it's the greatest thing ever. That's a fantasy. When you have wives say that when we get married, we'll never be alone. But yet and still during COVID, they sit in their house following rules that don't make any sense, that are overburdensome and non-consequential, only to have the people that they're trying to see decide that they don't want to see them. They don't want them around. But we're supposed to believe that you wanted the family to stay together. Because is that you shaping the narrative of the show? Is that you doing the Oprah Winfrey fantasy line of pretending that everything is cool and kosher? And there's also a point where I have to look at you and say that you aren't this naive person who doesn't understand things. Because after all, you had this to say early on when we were first met you in season 1.
I know what I want, but I know what I have to get done in order for it to happen.
If you don't like how you're being presented on TLC, you disagree with it, you think that they're putting you out there in a negative light, especially if they're just creating storylines and they're making you look bad to create these false storylines, then when your contract expires on TLC, how about you jump on YouTube? How about you come out and produce your own shows? You can buy cameras, you can buy the lights, the mics, and all that other stuff, the computer stuff, and you can sit there and produce your own shows and you can have conversations. Cody wants to be a thought leader as far as relationships is concerned. You want to be a thought leader as far as relationships is concerned. Get a YouTube channel and talk about it on YouTube. There's all kinds of stuff. You don't want to do YouTube, that's fine. Start a Discord channel. Go on X, go on Instagram, go on Facebook. But you're not confined to telling your story with a production team. Unless, of course, your problem isn't the fact that they're producing the show for you, and the disagreement isn't that these things happen. Your disagreement is just the fact that they're telling the audience the truth. And from somebody who has been dishonest and has tried to lead the TLC production team and has been dishonest in their own book, being dishonest seems like a character flaw to me. Let me know what you guys think down below. That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality, and I'm out.
Living life right like I could just die.